John McMullen, 97.3 ESPN.com, has a article currently posted on our website that you can check out for your enjoyment as well that reads something like this, that basically a lot of people think I would think, agree with John at this stage of the game. And John says that the Eagles, it's time for them to move on from Sam Bradford, John. It sounds like something that makes a lot of sense. However, this seems like a nonsensical situation here.
Yeah, it really is, and it becomes more difficult. That's the problem, Mike, is because of Sam's salary, obviously, and all of a sudden you have to look at where are the likely places he could land, one of them being Denver, who trades up in the draft last night to get Paxton Lynch. So that kind of takes him off the board. The Jets have been basically not interested at any point. And then obviously, look at other potential options. San Francisco, Sam has said he doesn't want to go back in Chip Kelly's offense, and we all kind of know that. So where could he possibly go, even if the Eagles were willing to take the $11 million cap hit? That's the part of it I'm not sure about. But that's the strength of Howie Roseman, and he's a very inventive guy, and you've seen the trades he's been able to pull off. He needs to do it again because you can't have this toxic environment around Carson Wentz when he's supposed to be the future of your organization.
Right. Are the doors all shut, though? You kind of laid out a couple teams. Are the doors shut for Sam Bradford? I mean, not only has the doors been shut by some possible teams, has he shut the doors to teams that are looking at him and saying, well, why would we want you?
Yeah, well, I think from San Francisco's standpoint, and I'm not sure if they want him, but we heard all the lip service from Chip Kelly when he was here, and even though it seemed like a great fit for Sam in that offense on the surface, Chip says he liked him, but it was pretty clear it didn't go both ways because Sam did not enjoy playing in that offense. So if that's a team that has a disgruntled quarterback in Colin Kaepernick and could possibly be looking to move on from him, all of a sudden, beggars can't be choosers. And if you want a starting job in this league, there aren't very many of them open.
Right. So in the end, if Denver is out, the Jets aren't interested, he doesn't want to go to San Francisco, isn't it inevitable that he's going to have to suck it up and come to Philadelphia, or do you see him holding out and not playing?
Well, you would think so, and that's what makes this so absurd to begin with. But I think as you miss voluntary workouts, and we can say people who compare it to Fletcher Cox, you can compare it to him all you like. There's a difference between a quarterback doing it and a defensive tackle doing it. And that's just the reality of the situation because the quarterback needs to be your leader of the team, both on and off the field. I can't think of many instances, and I was trying to go through notes over years of any starting quarterback missing voluntary off-season workouts, absent the day here and there if you have a family emergency, something like that. It's just part of the gig. You have to show up. And the Eagles realize that, and to assume that you could go through your whole off-season program without having the starting quarterback there, except for the mandatory minicamp, which is 3 days, I don't think that's viable.
What about the stance that Howie Roseman and Doug Peterson made again last night? They are insistent that they're not moving them.
Well, I think from Howie's standpoint, he's trying to get as much as he possibly can. And there's one report that he wanted two second-round picks to move Sam Bradford. Now, that to me sounds ridiculous that anybody would try to give up that, especially if you have to pay the contract that the Eagles gave Sam Bradford, which I don't think would be the end game. He's going to have to renegotiate. But nonetheless, that's pie-in-the-sky type thinking from Howie Roseman. And it's easy to do it now because they're not playing next week, and they're not even, as I said, at mandatory minicamp until June 7th. So you have some time, and this is obviously The NFL draft is when teams look to move players and try to gather assets. So this is the time when you want to try to go down every road you can to try to sort of solve this issue. And that's what he's trying to do. I think there's a certain amount of lip service, and the Eagles want Sam Bradford to be the starter. They're hoping he comes to his the realization that this is the best situation for him to move forward. But if he doesn't, you can't have that toxic voice around Carson Wentz. It's just you mortgaged your whole future on this guy. You have to do everything in your power to make sure he succeeds. And the last thing you want is this nasty veteran who's not going to mentor him and doesn't want to be there.
Yeah, and I know Carson Wentz was asked about that last night. He seemed like he answered. I thought Carson answered things pretty good last night. I thought he was, a guy that is going to at least be endearing to the fans. But he's already got the fans on his side. John, can Sam Bradford do anything to win the fans back?
That's a good question. If he wins a lot of football games,
I mean, because he had John. Because let me see if you agree with me. The game against Arizona, he gets hurt. He leaves the game. They boo Sanchez one play. Bradford comes back in. He got cheers. They were happy to see him back. He wins the game against New England. He played well late in the year. They made the trade a couple of weeks ago, and it was not well received. People thought, why are you doing this? He had the fans, didn't he?
Yeah, at one point he did, and he certainly had them when he went down and got injured, and Sanchez came in and did not perform well. All of a sudden he had the fans again. I don't think there's any way he could possibly win them back at this point until the season begins. If the Eagles do have him and keep him by that point, and they do want him to be the starting quarterback, then he could win him back by just performing at a very high level. Fans are very fickle. But from the off-season standpoint, when he doesn't have an ability to prove himself on the field, the way this is kind of developed, I don't see any way he can win the fans back until he does something on the actual football field.
We talked a lot yesterday, John, about can he win the job back. Mike Sealski was on earlier and writes, virtually what I've been kind of saying, you don't draft a guy at number 2, and then he added into, not only did they draft a guy at number 2, they gave up 5 picks to go get him at number 2, that there's essentially nothing Bradford can do. Different from if you're at 13 and you pick a guy 13, you didn't give anything else up. It's just one pick. That they have way too much invested in Wentz to allow Bradford to change their mind.
Yeah, there's no question about it long term. There's definitely, Sam has no chance to be the long-term answer at quarterback for this team, absent of winning a Super Bowl. That's the only way. And then at that point, you might say, well, let's try to spin off Carson Wentz, who's still going to have a very good reputation, and that's a possibility. But come on, we've seen enough of Sam Bradford. He's not going to win a Super Bowl. That's just the reality of the situation. People may not like to hear that, may think he deserves the chance to prove it. But if the light goes off and he performs at that level with this roster, that would be the most surprising thing in football history.
Funny thing is, one time he was drafted thinking that he could be the guy that could win you a Super Bowl. It's funny how fast and quickly careers change and things change for these guys. Carson Wentz is now the guy that people think could be the man who wins that Super Bowl. John, give me your thoughts on the overview now of the move and now the ending of Carson Wentz being the next guy in Philadelphia.
Well, you have to embrace it. There's no question about it because they have given up those 5 picks and the future first-rounder, which is really, really potentially a difficult blow moving forward. So it's either he succeeds and turns into an all-pro level quarterback, or you've set the franchise back a number of years. So you have to embrace it, and you have to look at the positive side, and that's obviously he's got the skill set to play this position. He's 6'5", he's 237 pounds. He's got the Joe Flacco-sized arm. His athleticism is off the charts. So all of that is the good stuff. The bad stuff, we know, is the level of competition, which is real. It's difficult to make that leap, but others have done it. Joe Flacco being an example, Steve McNair, who was once the number 3 overall pick. So those saying it's never happened before, you take some kid out of North Dakota State, that's not true, because NFL people are really more concerned about base skill set than they are about level of competition, because even if you play at Alabama, Mike, there is a big leap as far as the speed of the game goes from college to pro. So everybody's got to go through it to a certain extent. And there's been plenty of success stories. Phil Simms is another. So this is the guy they believe in. They've showed the courage of their convictions. Now we got to see if they're right.
There's no doubt about it. I do want to ask one question back on Bradford that we talked to with Mike Sealski at, I think there has been some disconnect on, which is the money they gave him and people reading into his contract. Well, he should have known. And as Sealski writes, they signed Bradford to a contract worth $22 million in guaranteed money. They paid him not like a one-year caretaker, but like a quality starter who they might decide to have stay a while. Do you agree with that?
No, I don't. I love Mike. I love his work. But, he's not a traditional football guy. And I can see when you look at $22 million guaranteed, you can jump to that conclusion. But you have to look at the landscape of the league. And we kind of talked yesterday on the draft show. Brock Osweiler and other people who are free agents or the contracts that are given out to veteran starters at this point in the NFL, it's an average deal. And when you take the point of, remember, a lot of people don't bring this up, but we have, Mike. Sam Bradford's cap number from this year to last year, it actually went down. And that was part of the reason that Howie Roseman structured the contract the way he did. His cap number is just basically $12.5 million for this season.
Yeah.
It was obviously a one-year prove-it deal, bridge deal, whichever adjective you want to use, but this was certainly not a big-time deal by NFL quarterback standards.
All right.
In fact, it was very disappointing.
He makes a couple other interesting points regarding people, questioning his toughness and whether or not he wants to compete, which I think is it's a really good piece, with a very polarizing discussion, basically saying, look, the guy had a concussion. He sprained his tore his ACL twice. He left with a game with a shoulder injury, and here he is back in the lineup. To call the guy weak is really not fair. But that's neither here nor there in terms of his mental capacity. I think this one. Do you think there will be a resolution on this by June 1 mandatories?
June 7th, yeah, I do. It's going to be interesting. If you think about last year's minicamp, it happened with Evan Mathis, and that's when Chip Kelly decided to move on from him, basically because he didn't want the sideshow. And he didn't want Evan showing up and talking to the media. Well, you can imagine that's going to be times 100. If Sam Bradford's not here for the rest of voluntary work, and all of a sudden he's got to show up June 7th and talk to the media, Philadelphia, and how that's going to be blown up. So I think the Eagles are going to take these number of weeks they have and really, really think about that and weigh their options. And if they really want this situation around their prize rookie, because it's not only Sam Bradford, Carson Wentz is going to be getting all these questions too, and he's going to have to deal with the controversy. And basically, he kind of had to do it on the conference call last night. And he said, I've been an Eagle for about an hour. And he's handled it as professionally as he could, but it's not going away unless the Eagles make it go away.
Yeah, John, let's move on to the draft moving forward now. A couple draft notes from John McMullen here, 97.3 ESPN. ESPN.com. I find it funny. I read your seven-round Eagles mock. You had a gentleman by the name. Let me grab this. Here we go. Here's my list. You had a gentleman by the name of Joshua Garnett going 79 to the Eagles. The 49ers, led by Trent Baalke last night, gave up 3 picks to move up 9 spots to get him. Was that a move that made you scratch your head?
Yeah, not just me. A lot of people wondering what the heck the 49ers are doing. Because, when you look at the draft, and Joshua Garnett's got a chance to be a really good player. But there's 2 aspects to any draft choice. And I wrote about that on today's pigskin.com today. Not only do you have to hit on the player, and obviously that's the most important part of it, but you also have to get value at where you are. And I don't know one draft expert, one person who follows the draft and scouts the draft who had Joshua Garnett rated as a number 1 pick. And that's the reality of the situation. You can like the player, but to go up and get him at that point just has a lot of people shaking their heads. And we know Chip's not in control, but this is his type of player, and the fact that he really pulls well, he's athletic. And I wrote maybe that Chip learned from his mistakes, because you remember what happened at offensive guard last year here in Philadelphia when he said, we can get anybody to fill in the spots. And all of a sudden, Alan Barber and Matt Tobin sure weren't Evan Masters. So maybe he learned from that, and they're going to improve, but to make that move at that particular spot doesn't make a lot of sense.
All right, John, I know at today's Pigskin you had flash reactions. I want to give you a couple of quickies. You just give me a quick reaction to what they did. Dallas taking Elliott at 4.
Didn't like it because of the position and the value of it.
Right, same thing, right? Value, same thing, right? Don't mind the player, the value.
Yeah, I love the player, actually. I really do. I think he's one of the best running back prospects over the last 10 years. He's going to be a 3-down back. But he's trying to create the 1990s Dallas Cowboys with Emmitt Smith behind a great offensive line, and that's just not what the NFL is today. It's changed drastically. And I don't know if you can build your team that way, and for that reason, I'm not in love with the pick at that point.
Eli Apple, 10, New York.
Well, that's absurd. And I love Eli Apple. He's from Voorhees, which is the town over from where I live in, and I wish him all the luck in the world. I hope he succeeds with the New York Giants. And he should have been a first-round pick, but he should have been in the 20s. The fact that the Giants used him at number 10, similar theme, possibly a good player down the line, but if you like him that much, trade down and get another asset, and you still get the same player, which is exactly what Tampa Bay did the spot after the Giants. They traded down a couple spots and got the player they wanted in Vernon Hargrave.
Let me get your thoughts then on Cleveland, who traded down twice and ended up with Corey Coleman. For moving down twice, are you thrilled with walking out with Corey Coleman over Fuller, Doxson, or Treadwell?
Well, I think those 4 guys you mentioned at the wide receiver position, there's not a lot that really separates them. So it's kind of what flavor do you like? If you want the game breaker who's got speed, you like Will Fuller. If you like the Michael Irvin type who can run routes and block, you like Treadwell. And Coleman's a really good player. What the Browns showed is they're not superstitious because they haven't had a lot of luck with another Baylor wide receiver. So as I wrote, hopefully he can stay out of trouble. And he's a very good player. So I think the Browns did a good job trying to do what they want to do, and that's be sort of baseball or basketball analytics based and pick up extra assets, and they were able to do that.
Paxton Lynch going to Denver.
Love that pick. The Broncos, it's almost like the rich getting richer. It's so frustrating when you see teams like the Jets at 20 pass up on a Paxton Lynch. Who's going to play quarterback for that team if you're not going to sign Ryan Fitzpatrick? It's astonishing that certain bad organizations keep making bad decisions, and all of a sudden, a kid like Paxton Lynch, who's probably not ready right now, but he lands in a spot in Denver where he's going to have time and be with a very good roster, with a very good executive who can build things around him. I think that's going to be a home run for the Broncos in a couple of years.
All right, last one for you, John, and before I get your overall take on your favorite and your worst there, I want to get your thoughts on, I'm interested. It's funny because the Tunsil thing is just, bizarre. And I see over at today's Pigskin, you gave that move a D minus, almost an F here. I think a lot of people on the other side of the coin thinking, man, all right, everybody's done what he's done for the most part. If you sampled half this draft, you wouldn't be able to draft anybody. And yet he's getting hammered for going down to 13 for that. Why D minus for Tunsil?
Well, it was such a disaster last night. Not evidence. You're talking about a guy who a couple weeks ago, before Tennessee traded the number one pick, was the projected top pick overall. Obviously, there's things going on in his personal life where people dislike him so much that if you take him at his word, they're hacking his social media account to destroy his future. Those are red flags, Mike. And the way people can spin it however they want as far as Ole Miss and the coaches and admitted getting paid and things like that. My issue is nothing about telling the truth or anything of that nature. This is a kid that was in the room with Robert Kempiche when he fell out of a 4-story window and the police found gobs and gobs of marijuana in the hotel room. They protected him from that. And we've seen how that kind of thing, whether it's Josh Gordon, Justin Blackman, can derail entire careers. Nobody questions his talent, but there's too many red flags for me.
All right. Give me your overall, favorite pick, worst pick in the draft from last night.
Oh, favorite pick. I love what Tampa Bay did, as I mentioned, because I think they got the player they wanted, and they were able to fall back a little bit. So I give a lot of credit to Jason Light, who used to work for the Eagles back in the day. He was one of those guys that lost one of the power struggles to Howie Roseman. So he did a tremendous job. Worst pick, I think you look at the Giants, as we mentioned, who as I wrote, I think Jerry Reese kind of threw out its back reaching for Eli Apple that early. And the 49ers, Joshua Garnett, who I had rated as a third-round pick, as you mentioned, and even the people that really liked him had him in mid to late second round. So I don't think they got good value at that particular pick, and they traded up to do it.
Some good guys still left on the board. Miles Jack, some people had him as the best player in this draft. If you're drafted in the second round tonight, do you have to take Jack?
I think he goes. The one thing we don't have that NFL teams have when we follow this draft is the medical records. And clearly they're not good with Miles Jack because, as you mentioned, a lot of people had him as the best pure football player in this draft. And I don't know anybody who didn't have him in the top 5. That's how talented that kid is. So it tells you a lot that he was not taken in the first round. And that indicates that there are some serious concerns over his knee. And he's probably teams in the NFL think he's going to need microfracture surgery at some point. And we've seen what that has done to Jadeveon Clowney. Remember, same exact situation, Mike. He had a meniscus tear. All of a sudden, it turned into microfracture surgery. So it's a big concern, but the risk is a lot more palatable in the second round.
And by the way, Adam Schefter tweeted out a little while ago that one of the doctors, I guess, suggested that he does not need microfracture surgery. So I guess that could get him off the board pretty fast. But I guess that's a tweet that could have been useful about 24 hours ago. Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. Second round coverage of the draft begins tonight at 6:30. Keep it locked right here. Second and third round coverage. The Eagles, I was going to say, who do you got at 79? But the 49ers already took them.
Exactly. But I think if you look at positions, there's some obvious ones. They still need offensive line help, wide receiver help, and also linebacker. Jim Schwartz has been really in both Howie Roseman and Doug Peterson's ears because just numbers-wise, they don't have enough linebackers. They got 6 under contract right now. So over the next 2 days, you're going to see at least 2 linebackers taken.
All right, John, I know you'll have an eye on the draft tonight. And Carson Wentz speaking at 5:30 tonight. I'm sure you'll be there to hear that as well. The Sports Bash and John McMullen has more on the Eagles and the draft over at 97.3 ESPN.com this weekend. Keep it there for all of the updates on the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th round. The Eagles have picks their 3rd round, 2 5th, a 6th, and 2 7ths the rest of the way. Thanks, John. Enjoy the rest of the draft this weekend.
Yeah, and it's standstill traffic right now, Mike, going to see Carson Wentz.
And it's all media members, I'm sure.